This program is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Hello and you're welcome to Business Highlights on Trust TV. On the show, we'll be taking you through some of the biggest business developments as well as major economic policies and how they affect the average Nigerian out there. My name is Chamun Dabeng and I will be your host. Today on the show, we're going to be having quite a few discussions, but we're starting off with the Naira redesign policy. Many of us know that the Supreme Court has finally made a decision to nullify the central bank's Naira redesign policy, and we'll be getting into that right after the break.
This program is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
You're welcome back to Business Highlights on Trust TV. As I said earlier on, we'll be taking a look at the Naira redesign policy. Now, following two adjournments, the Supreme Court has finally made a decision on the Central Bank of Nigeria's Naira redesign policy. Now, according to the court, the old Naira notes will remain legal tender until December 31st. Now, is this going to be the end of the Naira scarcity that the Nigerians out there have been facing? Now, joining me in the studio today to discuss this is Public Affairs Analyst as well as Business Consultant Agaba Wilson. Agaba, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. Now, let me ask you, how has this whole brouhaha, in fact, that's the word to describe it, been on you with the Naira scarcity out there?
I kind of simulated the situation before it played out. And so I braced myself before it hit. So for me as a person, I was affected by it, but the impact was quite bearable for me. Because when they talked about redesigning the Naira note and I saw the timeline, I told myself a lot of Nigerians are not going to take this money to the bank until it's close to the deadline. That is in our culture. And I also told myself, since they have mentioned curbing vote buying as part of the redesign of the Naira, there's going to be a political intonation about it. They are going to bring in the political perspective of this whole thing, and it's going to turn it into something we do not know. I also suspect that there's a chance that politicians will approach banks to get the share of the new notes they will give to them, and therefore the new note will become scarce. I also told myself there's going to be hysteria. Nigerians are going to start saying those who normally didn't need cash will begin to want cash. Those who, it's going to create a whole lot of things, the black market of Naira. These are all things I foresaw. So what I did was...
So basically you predicted every possible scenario that could come as a result of the policy. Now
took
that
my own stance.
Now that the court has nullified the Central Bank of Nigeria's Naira redesign policy, what are the implications of this? We saw the Supreme Court actually, put out that the Naira would remain legal tender for about a week, but the CBN said no, February 10th deadline still stands. And a lot of people are just, with their old Naira notes and can't really do anything with it. Now, do you really foresee Nigerians adhering to this? Because that wasn't really the case. Because even when the bank said, even when the court said, oh, the Naira note still remains legal tender, that's the 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira notes, a lot of Nigerian businesses refused to collect these notes.
Well, basically, I was reading on social media that there are banks in Rivers State, Oyo State, and a few other states that have started dispensing the old 500 and 1,000 Naira notes. For me, I don't think that the bank should take instruction from the Supreme Court directly.
Okay, why
so?
The
Supreme Court has made a pronouncement on the case, and I think the case was between the governors and the president or the federation. Now, I think it is up to the federation to give instruction to the central bank, and then the central bank will advise the banks and Nigerians on this issue, because as far as I know, the monetary aspect of the economy solely resides with the Central Bank of Nigeria, and the act that created them gives them autonomy to manage the country's money. So they decide what becomes a legal tender, how it becomes a legal tender, when it stops being a legal tender. So I don't think that banks should begin to act on pronouncement without the agency that is solely responsible for monetary issues making its own pronouncement. I read somewhere that the CBN has said they are going to review the case and make their pronouncement on the issue in about a week or so.
So it's basically become like a battle between the Supreme Court and the Central Bank of Nigeria. Anyway, we have a report. Of course, we have footage from the Supreme Court itself. So let's take a look at that.
The Apex Court listed 3 issues for determination: contending issue of jurisdiction, disregard to its interim order, and merit of the suit. Reading the judgment on behalf of the 7-member panel of justices, Justice Emmanuel Agin dismissed preliminary objections by the defendants, affirming that the court has exclusive and original jurisdiction to entertain the matter as it affects states in the federation. It also found the president guilty for disregarding its earlier interim order, just as it decided the suit in favor of the plaintiffs.
The Supreme Court has spoken. We cannot sit in judgment over the Supreme Court. I expect the CBN to comply. I expect the president to comply. We are a nation under law. The Supreme Court has spoken, and we are bound.
That the decision, the Naira redesign, is as implemented by the federal government, is patently illegal, is unconstitutional, and it is not in line with the spirit of the Constitution. And to that extent, the Supreme Court has spoken that both the old notes and the new notes will be in circulation till 31st of December 2023.
The Apex Court also held that the unilateral decision of the president to implement the policy without consulting critical stakeholders such as National Economic Council, the Council of State amongst others, is inconsistent with the provisions of the law. Governors of Kaduna, Kogi, and Zamfara speak on the judgment.
Today is a day of happiness for all Nigerians. The Supreme Court of Nigeria.
Well, there you have it, coming straight from the Supreme Court, the decision that was made on the old Naira notes. Now, of course, my guest in the studio says he's of the opinion that banks shouldn't directly follow the Supreme Court's order, but should wait for the central bank to give their own order. Now, we have a couple of states that have actually said, you know what, keep taking the old Naira notes, and but the FCT is on a different page, and there are other states that are also on the same page with the FCT. Now, what does this mean for businesses itself? Because a lot of Nigerians, they're confused. They don't really know which way to go at this point. Whether is it the Central Bank of Nigeria, is it the Supreme Court's judgment? What do they do now? There are businesses out there. Do they take the old Naira notes, or do they continue to refuse it as they have been doing?
You know, generally, this matter ought not to be so if we are a nation that respects procedure and hierarchy. All right. If you listen to the gentleman after the determination of the case, he said that he hopes that the president obeys the ruling of the court. He hopes that the CBN obeys the ruling of the court. He was careful in choosing those statements. Mm-hmm. He did not say he hopes the banks obey it, or he hopes that Nigerians begin to accept the money. The only legal channel through which you take monetary instruction is from the Central Bank of Nigeria. So as it is today, there is going to be this confusion in the society until this matter is resolved. And I expect the APC government to sit themselves down and come to a conclusion and stop confusing Nigerians. For me, if I run a small business out there, my safest option will be to receive transfer, POS, and thankfully enough, the eNaira has been improved. We've been shouting about it. Now you can transfer from your eNaira wallet to any bank account. You can move money from your bank account to your eNaira wallet, and can move from eNaira wallet back to your bank account. And for transfers on eNaira is very seamless, almost instant, and no charges for now. Mm-hmm. So I will encourage small businesses to go in that direction for now. so that you don't box yourself into a corner. Because I can see some political intrigues in these currency issues. There are people out there who want this money to keep being accepted because of other reasons other than what we know. And there are people out there who feel that we have come this far. Why bring the money back? And if you want to ask, how did the court even determine that from now to December 31st is a good time? How did you determine that? What yardstick? So they are just confusing Nigerians, but my advice to small businesses for now is try to go options that are electronics for now, so that you don't go and stockpile old notes and then the CBN keeps fighting and saying, well, we did not give that instruction and the banks should not accept it. You'll be stuck with a lot of money that you cannot spend. So for the time being, I suggest that we move towards electronic aspect until the coast is clear, until these gladiators come together and agree in one voice and give us instruction.
I like how you refer to them as gladiators. Well, could this be the end of the Naira scarcity that we're facing?
Well, remember that the CBN said they had pulled out about 2.7 trillion Naira from the system before, and they had about 900 billion left to pull out. And remember some times ago when the court said that the whole money should be recirculated, the CBN said they had destroyed the 1,000 Naira notes and the 500 Naira note they have collected. All right, so where is that money going to come from? Except the ones in some people's houses that have not been deposited at the bank, or the few notes in the hands of Nigerians that have not been deposited. I guarantee you those notes are not going to be deposited. So if we accept it, they are not going to be brought to the bank. They are going to remain in the black market for a very long time. So this situation is not for us. I don't see cash solving our problem now. The only way to solve our problem is to push for other means of buying and selling, electronic means. And that is the only thing that is going to, because once you push for that, and many of us who can use those electronic means of buying begin to use it, the few notes available will now be enough for those who truly need physical cash. And before you know it, money will start coming back to the banks. Before you see that we get out of this cash scarcity, you are going to see sales money coming back to the bank in the evening or in the morning of the next day. But as long as sales money don't return back to the bank, we are going to have issue of cash.
All right, so we're going to wrap up this particular discussion. We'll take a short break, and when we get back, we'll be taking a look at MSMEs in Nigeria. What next for them? Don't go anywhere.
This program is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
You're welcome back to Business Highlights on Trust TV. My name is Chamunda Beng, and I'm still here with public affairs analyst and business consultant Agaba Wilson Agaba. And we're moving on to our next discussion for the day. Micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. What next for MSMEs in Nigeria? We're moving into a new regime. Yes. We're moving into a new regime. So let's just take a look at some of the stats. Now, there are 36.9 million MSMEs in Nigeria, which comprises 96.7% of all businesses within the country. Now, MSMEs are a major contributor to Nigeria's GDP, and it brings in over 45%, 45% of our GDP, 98.8% of them are in the micro cadre, and 67% are owned by youth. So you see, the MSMEs in this country is really, really important. It's basically the backbone of every single nation. But within the last, should I say, 8 years, what are some challenges do you think that this sector has faced?
Well, our challenges have not changed so much. We have issues of power supply, which is where every business seems to be rooted. We have issues of infrastructure such as road, which helps to move goods and services from one location to the other. We have the issue of security, which allows us to do our businesses without fear of being kidnapped, killed, or without our resources being taken away from us. We had a lot of other issues, okay, that popped up. But let's look at power, for instance. The micro businesses, such as somebody who operates a barbing salon, somebody who operates a small frozen meat or frozen fish shop, you know, all of these small businesses depends on power. How has the power situation been? It has always been like, oh, we are getting better, and then it drops down to where it used to be. And the other alternative is petrol for small generators. And then we know what the PMS have become in recent time. These have also affected businesses. Then the other alternative is diesel. You know, diesel went up almost all the way to 1,000 per liter. So it has been a bumpy ride for small businesses in Nigeria, with a lot of them packing up abruptly because all these things are not on ground. Let's not even talk about the cost of capital, because if you're in business, you need to get fund to run your business. How much does it cost a Nigerian SME to raise capital? Apart from the former interest rate that is being charged, which has been in double digits all the while, you have to also go your way through the thick and thin of corruption to also get funding. You need to bribe somebody who is in this office to bribe this one for your document to be looked at and all. So the whole environment is choking the SMEs. In order for us to move forward, we need to look at the issue holistically. We need to look at what we have been doing that has not been right and what we have been doing that are making sense. If you look at our intervention, most times the government comes up and says, okay, we are going to dedicate 200 billion for SMEs intervention. Okay, you have dedicated that amount. Who gets what and when? How do you get them to pay back so that the money can keep circulating? What is your long-term plan for the MSMEs? A business that starts as a micro business today should grow to a small business. And from there, they should grow to a medium business and grow to a large and maybe an international corporation. America's economy today depends on their enterprises. If you pick your phone and Google the number of multi-billion dollars and trillion dollars in companies operating in the United States, then you can understand why they are a big country. So in order for us to grow, we need to grow our enterprises from mini to micro to medium to large and to multinational. We need to have a pathway of growing them. At what point do you enter the chain? How do you progress through the chain? The government should actively be involved in protecting, nurturing, and growing these businesses. And what is the basic? Well, where do you start that? You start from data. Valid data on SMEs, a platform that enters them and capture their valid data, and a platform that encourage SMEs to want to board. Okay, so this for me is very fundamental if you really need to grow the SME sector.
All right. So now the country has seen 2 recessions so far.
Yes.
We're facing a global inflation. Nigeria has its own inflationary pressures that it's been facing even before the global inflation even started. Now, how do businesses survive? Now, you know, even when you look at Nigeria's past, most businesses will shut down within its first 5 years. They barely ever see anything beyond that. Now, how do they survive moving forward? We have so many different challenges. You brought up a few. We are still facing FX challenges. We have power issues and so many other things. How do we get to that point where we create a proper environment for businesses to thrive? I mean, we're looking at developing Fortune 500 companies and we barely have any of those.
Well, basically, the buck stops on the desk of the government. The government needs to study the business environment to understand the real issues with the real entrepreneurs, and then come up with a holistic solution to that. Some of us have advocated that if you take a good look at these problems, you'll be able to, with people who are in the businesses, in the industry by themselves, you'll be able to get a deeper look at the problem, have better insight, and come up with better policies. We have made ourselves available and say, if you need something like that done, we are willing to contribute for free. We are willing to do our best. But if you leave the government out of it, out of all of this, then how do the businesses survive by themselves? The only answer is what we call innovation. Process innovation, business innovation, product innovation. And in fact, we are now having some new words like customer innovation. What does that mean? You find a way to navigate your business through the difficulties as it is so that you can keep surviving. This is where the skills of the entrepreneur himself and the business manager comes to play. So the more you know, the wiser you are, the more intelligent you are, the more data you are able to put together and analyze, the better you can survive. But this is no longer going to be a field where just anyone can play. And that is not going to generate massive SME growth for us. Although it is going to improve what we call resilience, because the more they throw hard stuff at you and you try to maneuver your way to survive it, the stronger you become and the more lasting your business become. However, this will make the industry not enticing for those who otherwise should have been in it. So the buck stops with the government.
All right, so as we prepare for the next set of government officials that will be coming in, what next for Nigerian businesses moving forward? What are some of the things that the new regime needs to look into and tackle and nip in the bud?
Number one, this outgoing administration projected itself as one who fought so very much for ease of doing business in the country. They try to reduce the time within which you can register a company, the time which you can buy a property and then register it, the time within which you can do patenting, and all those indices are there if you take a look at the ease of doing business index that used to be published by the World Bank. The government of the day, which is the outgoing, said they did a lot in that area. Now, basically, if we want to make the atmosphere, the environment more favorable to businesses, first thing we need to do is to concentrate more on infrastructure. Number one at the top is power. Let's stabilize what we are generating and transmitting. And then let's have a plan for incremental progress, so that as we move from one year to the other, people can begin to depend on power, to do their businesses. Then we need to look at the issue of corruption without drastically reducing corruption in this country. We are going nowhere. We can't go anywhere. We need to have a way to fight corruption to a standstill, to bring it. Corruption affects businesses in so many ways. You need to travel on the road and see vehicles that carry raw material from one state into the other. You need to see how many checkpoints they have to drop whatever tips to different agencies. Some of them are not even government agencies, but they are on federal highways. We need to be able to curb that. Processes such as patenting, registering of products, acquisition of certification for setting, all of these things are fraught with corruption. We need to come to a point where businesses can do these things seamlessly. We need to come to a point where businesses can file a process and get it done seamlessly. I watched a friend try to get his tax clearance the other time. From the point you come in to pay the money, they are friendly with you. Until you get the money paid, then nobody wants to see you. Why is that difficult? If you make it easy for this person to get their certificate the moment they pay, more people are going to come and get the certificate.
All right, sorry to cut you off. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time. But yes, at the end of the day, we need our SMEs to survive in order for us to have a thriving economy. Well, we've come to the end of our show for today, and I would like to thank my guests in the studio. Thank you so much. Public affairs analyst, business consultant, Agaba Wilson Agaba. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of the show.
Thank you very much.
To our viewers out there, thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all of them. Just look up Trust TV News. Well, my name is Chamun Dabeng. Come back again. Let's talk numbers.
This program is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.